Let me ask you something strange. What if I told you that a cheeseburger, a simple sesame seed bun, 2 pickles, special sauce cheeseburger, knows more about the global economy than most politicians do? What if that burger could tell you why your salary feels smaller every year even when the number goes up? Why a worker in Switzerland earns $40 an hour doing the exact same job that pays $2 an hour in the Philippines? Why moving from one country to another can make you either rich or broke overnight, without changing a single thing about who you are or how hard you work? Here's the truth. Economists have been using a burger to measure the health of the entire global economy for over 35 years. And what it keeps revealing, over and over again, is that the system most of us think is fair isn't. Not even close. This is the story of the Big Mac Index, and it's going to change how you see every price tag, every paycheck, and every border on the map. It's 1986. A journalist named Pam Woodall at the Economist magazine has a problem. She needs to explain one of the most complicated concepts in international economics, purchasing power parity, to regular readers who did not go to graduate school. Purchasing power parity, say that 3 times fast. It sounds like something that belongs locked in a textbook. But the idea behind it is actually simple. It's the theory that in a free and efficient global market, identical goods should cost the same everywhere once you account for exchange rates. $1 should buy you the same amount of stuff in Tokyo as it does in Texas. Spoiler, it doesn't, not even slightly. So Woodall needed a product that was genuinely identical across countries. Same ingredients, same process, same portion size, something global, something standardized, something everyone knew. She picked the Big Mac. McDonald's sold it in dozens of countries. The recipe was the same everywhere. Corporate made sure of it. The beef, the bread, the sauce, the pickles, identical. So if a Big Mac costs $5 in the United States and the equivalent of $2.50 in Malaysia, something interesting is happening. Either the Malaysian currency is undervalued by 50%, or Malaysian workers and landlords and farmers are working for half the real compensation of their American counterparts. Both things, it turns out, are true. What started as a lighthearted column became one of the most cited tools in global economic analysis, the Big Mac Index, published twice a year, watched by economists, currency traders, and governments worldwide. Because a burger, it turns out, doesn't lie. Let's get into how this actually works, because this is where it gets genuinely fascinating. Right now, a Big Mac in the United States costs about $5.50. In Switzerland, it costs the equivalent of nearly $8. In Egypt, it costs the equivalent of about $1.50. Same burger, same bun, same everything. So what does that gap tell us? First, it tells us about currency valuation. If you take the price of a Big Mac in 2 countries and compare it to the current exchange rate, you can see whether a currency is overvalued or undervalued relative to the dollar. Switzerland's franc, by Big Mac math, is significantly overvalued. Egypt's pound is significantly undervalued. This means Swiss exports are expensive and Egyptian exports are cheap, which affects everything from tourism to manufacturing, to which factories global companies decide to build where. But here's the deeper thing the burger reveals, and this is the part that should make you stop and think. The price difference isn't random. It tracks almost perfectly with wages, cost of living, and economic development. Countries where the burger is cheap are countries where labor is cheap. Countries where the burger is expensive are countries where workers have negotiated a larger share of the value they create. That $1.50 Big Mac in Egypt isn't cheap because Egyptians are less skilled or less hardworking. It's cheap because of a complex web of historical, political, and structural forces that have kept wages low. The burger isn't just measuring prices, it's measuring power. Here's where the burger becomes genuinely uncomfortable. Let's talk about what wages actually mean in different countries. Not the number, but the reality behind it. A McDonald's worker in Denmark earns around $22 an hour. In the United States, it's closer to $13 to $15, depending on the state. In India, it can be as low as $1 to $2. Same job, same fryer, same uniform. Same corporation extracting profit from their labor. Now, you might say, but the cost of living is different, and you're right, it is. But when you adjust for what that money actually buys, the gaps don't disappear. They don't disappear. A Danish McDonald's worker can buy more Big Macs per hour of work than almost any worker on Earth. An Indian McDonald's worker might work an entire day to buy one. That ratio is one of the most honest measures of economic inequality that exists. And this gap has consequences that reach far beyond burgers. It determines whether you can afford healthcare, whether you can save enough to send your children to university, whether an unexpected car repair wipes out your entire month. Whether you have a future that is genuinely open or one with a ceiling so low you can feel it pressing down on you, the burger makes all of that visible in one number. Now let's talk about the part governments really don't want you to think about. Currencies aren't just neutral measuring sticks, they're tools, and some countries use them as weapons. When the Big Mac Index shows that a country's currency is significantly undervalued, cheaper than it should be by purchasing power math, that's often not an accident. That's policy. A cheap currency makes your exports cheaper for foreign buyers. It makes your factories more attractive for foreign investment. It makes your workers competitive on global markets, not because they're more productive, but because the exchange rate is rigged in your favor. China was the most famous example of this for decades. The yuan was kept artificially low, making Chinese manufacturing irresistibly cheap for Western companies. The Big Mac Index flagged this consistently. A Big Mac in China was dramatically cheaper than purchasing power parity suggested it should be, pointing to a currency that was deliberately held below its natural value. This isn't just an abstract monetary debate. It meant Western factories closed, Western workers lost jobs, supply chains relocated, entire industrial towns hollowed out, not because of anything those workers did wrong, but because a currency decision made in Beijing made their labor artificially uncompetitive. Meanwhile, countries with strong currencies face the opposite problem. A strong franc means Swiss watches, and Swiss pharmaceuticals are expensive abroad. Swiss tourism gets priced out. The economy has to innovate constantly. Move up the value chain, specialize in things so good that people will pay the premium, just to stay competitive. The burger captures all of this tension in a single price comparison. No economics degree required. Let's bring this home, because this isn't just history or theory. This is happening to your money right now. When you hear that inflation is running at 4% or 6% or 8%, what that means in Big Mac terms is this. The number of hours you have to work to buy a standardized unit of life, groceries, rent, a meal out, is going up. Your salary might be going up too. But if it's not going up as fast as prices, you are getting poorer in real terms, even if the number on your paycheck is larger. This is the illusion that the modern economy runs on. Nominal gains that feel like progress, but mask real losses. And central banks, the institutions that control the money supply and set interest rates, are the referees of this game. When they print more money, prices rise. When they raise interest rates, borrowing slows, businesses contract, unemployment often climbs. There is no perfect move. Every lever has a cost. And ordinary people almost always bear more of that cost than the people pulling the levers. The Big Mac Index also tells you something useful if you're thinking about where to live or work internationally. If you earn in a strong currency and spend in a weak one, you move to a country where the burger is cheap. Your standard of living dramatically improves without any change in your productivity. This is the logic behind geographic arbitrage. Why digital nomads move to Southeast Asia, why retirees move to Portugal or Mexico. The burger math works in your favor. Flip it the other way. Earn in a weak currency, spend in a strong one, and you feel permanently behind. That's the daily reality for hundreds of millions of people working in developing economies and paying for imported goods priced in dollars. So here's where we land, and I want you to sit with this one for a moment. The Big Mac Index was invented as a joke, a playful way to explain a dry economic concept. But what it accidentally became is one of the most democratic tools in economics because it translated something impossibly complex into something anyone can understand. You don't need to understand interest rate differentials or currency swap agreements or monetary policy transmission mechanisms. You just need to know what a burger costs. And what the burger keeps telling us, across 35 years of data, across dozens of countries, through booms and crashes and pandemics and wars, is that the global economy is not a level playing field. It never has been. Borders matter, currencies matter, history matters. The country you were born in shapes your economic reality more than almost any personal decision you will ever make. That isn't fatalism, that's clarity. Because once you see the system clearly, you can make better decisions inside it. You can understand why your money behaves the way it does. You can recognize when you're being told a number that's technically true but economically misleading. You can see past the noise. A burger shouldn't be able to do all of that, and yet, the next time you walk past a McDonald's, I want you to look at the price on that menu board and think, what does this number say about where I live, what my labor is worth, and what kind of economy I'm actually living inside? Because that price isn't random, it's a data point in a global story, and now you know how to read it. If this changed how you see prices, wages, and the global economy, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And next time, we're going deeper, how the dollar became the world's currency, and what happens when it stops being one. That video is right here.